All right. Welcome, everybody, to this very special edition of the Thoughtium Navigating Now Roundtable series. I am Anthony Ewing, a partner here at Thoughtium. We are incredibly excited to bring you this special edition. It happens to be episode 31 of us going live each week, Thursday at 3 o'clock. We'll talk a little bit about this series and how it's evolved over the course of the year, but moreover, we're thrilled to be here at the end of the year taking a look back. So this episode is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be focused on the best moments that we have been so fortunate to be a part of. Over 30 episodes of generating and cultivating community with leaders on topics that matter most. And I couldn't be more excited to share the stage today with my business partner and co-founder here at Thoughtium, Norm Ralph. Norm, it's been too long. Welcome back to the table. And it's just exciting. It's really exciting to share this feed with you today. Welcome.
Yeah, excited to be here. Even just had a moment as Anthony and I were setting up, thinking back to, even 3 years ago, the first time he invited me to, in the background, be part of the vlog, to us looking at podcasting, to now this forum. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And you and I are going to get a chance to reflect and connect a lot of the content and discussion that's happened over the course of the past year. And it has been an absolutely incredible year. For those of you who are joining us, thank you. Most of you are regulars here, and we really appreciate your support and your energy. We're so thrilled to be able to bring this level of consistency, not just to the marketplace, but more importantly, to our community of friends, family, colleagues, clients. And we do that every week. And we broadcast live, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Particularly our LinkedIn community, we want to thank you. We get a lot of comments and feedback on folks who pass us by on their feed and stop and say hello, or they refer back to some of the content and discussions that we have, again, with colleagues, with customers. And it's just so great to be able to share this platform with you all. So for those of you who are joining, we would love for you to say hello on LinkedIn. Please feel free to drop a like or just say hi in the comments. For those of you who are joining us via Zoom, go ahead and say hello in the chat box. We'll also field questions if there are any throughout. But today is really about Norm and I taking our community, you all, through what a big part of leadership and a big part of this last year you all have been, and the contributions that our community, particularly a handful of leaders that contributed to the Navigating Now Roundtable, have really brought a ton of value. And we're going to revisit some of the most memorable moments over the course of 30 episodes. And there were an absolute ton to choose from, but we whittled it down to 6. And this might look a little bit different, and it's actually the first time that we're doing this type of a format. So bear with us as we transition from section to section. Before we dive in, Norm, it's been 30 weeks. If you can think back to 30 weeks ago, clearly we were at the doorstep of what is now, COVID-19 and this year, and the impression that it's had on this year, both on us as individuals, but also on us as business leaders. Talk to us a little bit about Navigating Now. What has it been for you, and how have you maybe experienced this community grow over the last 30 weeks, 40 weeks?
Yeah, I've just been so impressed with our community really coming to the table. It felt like each week there was something really profound, as if somebody was speaking to me at the time where I needed to hear it most. There was so much just uncertainty and everybody was finding their way, but it just felt like the consistency of every Thursday tuning in, topics that were really mattering most and evolving week over week. And even if you look through the thread from episode 1 to episode 30, there's just even a natural storyline or progression of just how those conversations unfolded, how we were all experiencing what was happening in the world. And for me, there's nothing better than getting great people together, creating community and connection, and the ability for us to really pause, step outside of really what's going on day to day, and just be there for each other. So it just felt like there was this platform that was created that for me, every week, I just look forward to.
Yeah, it's interesting. We obviously designed the platform to provide value by way of perspective and bringing leaders to the table. But what I don't think you and I realized was how much we were going to get out of it as well too.
Agreed.
It
Yeah.
really was just a constant discussion. It was something always to look forward to. And at the end of the day, each week we were able to come in, clear, everything away in terms of our day-to-day, which I know is really intense for folks these days, regardless of whether you're in the professional world or not. And really just unpack again these topics that what we say matter most. And we want to revisit some of those moments throughout today. And we're going to start by showing a bit of a clip. And this comes from episode 3, actually. This was just about mid-April, after we had just launched Navigating Now, and we were all still trying to figure this out. And we had no one better to introduce some of the key topics that we as leaders will be dealing with in 2020 than Tim Jones. Tim is one of our favorite members of the Thoughtium community. I know he's just an incredible force here in the Chicago community. He's an activist. He is an organizer of people, and he always has an absolute way with words. So in episode 3, we were talking about resilience, and we brought resilience to the forefront of the table because a lot of people were talking about it. What does it mean now to really show resilience, and what is resilience in everyday action? And Tim just has this way of cutting through some of these terms that so loosely can be defined and making them really hit home. So we're going to share this clip, and hopefully everybody can see it, hear it, and enjoy. Bear with me for a second. And Norm, go ahead and give me a visual thumbs up if and when you
Sounds great.
hear it.
Yeah, I think foremost, it's important to understand, resilience, front end attribute that we all are born with and walk around with. You have to actually go through something to attain it, to acquire it, because resilience is the ability to bounce back, which means you've been down, you've been out, in some type of way, you bounce back. And the resilient people that I know and work with, the communities that I've been working alongside, they really have a good grasp of this. This isn't something that just kind of jolts their system, particularly Black and Brown communities. They understand that what setbacks are, but they also understand uniquely that setbacks are really slingshots for their lives. And so times like this, when certain groups or communities panic, they see this as an opportunity to be catapulted into a new season or to a new opportunity. So it's a challenging perspective to have, considering 20 plus million people are in unemployment benefits, but it's just this mindset that you don't let go when you have this attribute called resilience.
Pretty incredible, right? To take a term like resilience and to name it, and to talk about the other side of resilience. In this episode, we talked a lot about what's typically behind resilience is kind of getting through things. It's that grit, it's that ability to push through, and we debunked that a little bit. It's the ability also to bounce back. Norm, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny. I'll say that this actually changed a little bit of just even my view or perspective on what is resilience. I'll say for me, the word that comes to mind is more endurance. Like, I have the ability to endure a lot, but there's something very different about the ability to bounce forward, or even look at, where is this going to take me? And so as I think about resilience, again, it's less about just enduring and embracing, but it's more about how is this going to enable me to potentially move in maybe a different direction, or even just allow me to level up in certain ways.
Yeah. And, I keep going back to how early we had this discussion.
Very early.
And maybe how little we realized this was going to impact our ability to lead and our ability to navigate, at the time. And I always kind of look at this year almost in 3 parts. There was the first part of the year, which was the introduction of the pandemic. And that was all about maintaining continuity. And the second part was maybe a realization that it's here to stay. And so we immediately started to think about, how do we replace the in-person productivity and face-to-face and meetings with this new virtual world? And we started to really invest in that. The third part, and we're going to get to that through this evolution, is, how do we lead in this space, knowing that it could have real kind of permanent implications on our teams and our businesses. And I just love that this early on, we were almost starting with the foundations, and resilience being one of them. So Tim, if you are watching this, thank you so much. You have been such an incredible force for us. You are the epitome of consistency for those folks who just want to see consistent execution and inspiration on a day-to-day basis. Follow I Am Tim Jones on all channels, particularly Instagram. He's just the model of consistency, and his leadership through the Navigating Now community. I think he was on 3 episodes this year, is one of the most consistent energies that we've had in the course of the last 8 months. All right, so we are continuing to review some of the most memorable moments from our 2020. This is a little bit of a different take on our year in review. Our year in review, Norm, is typically looking back at our great client relationships, some of the amazing work that we've done, and our growing team. All 3 of those things have happened, but this year was more about the community. So, talk a little bit about, community and how maybe that definition has changed for you over the course of this last year.
Yeah, it's funny. Even yesterday, we had a meeting with some community leaders, and as I think about even that forum, the ability to bring individuals together who maybe weren't part of community before this, I'll say everybody's almost reimagining or even redefining what does community mean. And for me personally, I've started to just ask myself, how can I really have deep, meaningful relationships of building community with impact that's bigger than what I'm doing today? So whether it's my profession, what I'm doing as part of my physical community, but what's something that I can be doing that's part of, whether it's the human community or humanity or even just bigger than us. And so I just know that people are looking for community. People are trying to figure out how can I engage in community. And you and I have been fortunate to just be starting to get surrounded by some incredible leaders who want to do just some amazing work.
Yeah, it really is inspiring. And we're going to come back to this concept of community here in just a few minutes. But why don't we go ahead and revisit our second most memorable moment from the last 35 weeks of Navigating Now. And this one comes to us from episode 4. So again, this was very early on. We brought in these panels of 4 or 5 leaders from completely different industries. And in this case, we had an executive from an advertising and communications agency. We had several life sciences leaders. We also had Wei-Li Shao, who is the CCO at Omada Health. He's just an incredible light sense of stability and leadership, particularly in turbulent times. And Wei-Li talked a little bit about how this pandemic is going to affect the way that we lead. And what we love about this platform is that the folks that step to the table are not afraid to articulate and very clearly talk about what this means from a day-to-day perspective. And Wei-Li talks about rolling his sleeves up as a leader now like we've never had to before. So why don't we take a look?
But if I kind of think about, a couple of things, one of them is, we are, whether we like it or not, and don't like to use the words because of the stress that comes with it, we are kind of in a bit of a crisis right now. And that requires a different kind, a different style, and a different brand of leadership, in my opinion. And one of the things that I think is not too dissimilar to what Dave has said is I think this is the last time, or this is the last thing we should be doing as leaders is sitting up on our leadership C-suite perch and watching kind of the battlefield, as it were, as it unfolds. And in fact, what I've been doing and what a number of our leaders have been doing and is kind of like getting our hands dirty, rolling up our sleeves, and really doing the work, digging the trenches shoulder to shoulder with employees on the front line, whether they're our direct level down or the one below that or the one below that, because people are working so hard to meet customer needs, especially given the important mission that we have. And so I find myself in one meeting in the morning talking about, okay, hey, what's our COVID-19 kind of business continuity plan? And then I go to the next meeting about, sitting with our frontline marketing folks saying, okay, hey, let's look at the copy and the message that we're going out. And hey, what about this program? And can we tweak it like that? And oh, wait, Lee, no, you can't do that operationally. We've got some privacy issues. Okay, well, how do we work together? Okay, I got that ball as the CCO. I'll go run that down for you. So really being in the trenches, rolling up your sleeves, shoulder to shoulder. And the benefit of that really is not only obviously the morale and just kind of being in it, but, because things are changing so quickly, I can't afford for the report on the front line to get to that layer of management, then the next layer of management, and then finally me, because by the time I get it, things change the next day. And so the benefits are real for me as a leader. The other.
So again, just incredible words, right? And not just inspirational, but extremely tactical. Wei Lee talks about how leadership has changed from a day-to-day perspective. And Norm, I'm just curious, as you revisit that moment in episode 4, now 30 weeks later, is that true? And have you experienced the need to get in the trenches? I know the answer to this. more today than prior to 2020.
Yeah, it's funny. There's two things about that video that just really came to light. So one was just being in the work. I mean, you and I talk quite a bit about that clouds in the dirt, and now more than ever, I mean, the dirt is just required. I mean, there's so much to be done, and that in those times of uncertainty, when you think about what really brings a team together, or if you were to look back at your most memorable moments as being a part of a team or part of a project or an organization, it's great to have the accolades and the trophies and the medals. But at the end of the day, it's those days where it got tough and you were in the trenches and your back was up against the wall, or there was some new complexity that came in. And so to me, it's that formation or those memories that we're going to look back a year from now, 2 years from now, when we were all together and just in it. And so I just think there's something about being in it. And then the second thing is about his comment about communication for clarity. So as I think about as a leader, I mean, you and I experience this quite a bit. We don't have the answers. Like there's certain parts that we have certainty, and then there's uncertainty. But what we can do is at least communicate what we know and what we don't. So I just feel like that, that has also challenged us a bit of trying to figure out how do we maybe adapt our communication style as we're like in the work. And at times we still got to be elevated up and looking up and out to set direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I'd maybe add a third takeaway from that piece. And what I loved about it was that he was recognizing that the time to decision needs to shorten. And so, his getting in the trenches, right? Like getting in the dirt, as you talked about, not only shows his team that, he is here and he is supporting them in different ways, but it also allows him to shorten the time it takes to make decisions. And if there's ever anything that we've learned over the last year, it's that you have to now be in a position to be able to make very quick decisions a lot sooner.
Agreed.
Yeah. Wei Lee, if you're watching this, thank you so much for being a part of the Navigating Now community. We were just thrilled to have you a part of that. That was a very lively panel. And again, that was episode 4. So towards the end of April, beginning of May, when we were still trying to figure it out as leaders.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to move forward to our next memorable moment. And this one might be the most surprising or unexpected, but it became my absolute favorite episode of Navigating Now. Now, I say that all of them are my favorites, but I would say that there was a couple moments in this episode that really, really brought forward some of the key ingredients that haven't changed. Mm-hmm. We've talked all year about what has changed in business. And in episode 16, we had Jimmy Graziano, who is the owner of JP Graziano's, which is a small 80-year-old family-run Italian deli here in downtown Chicago. It's in the West Loop for those Chicagoans who know the West Loop. It's in the heart of Restaurant Row on Randolph, which means that it doesn't have a chance in hell of surviving some of these big conglomerates that have come in. And sure enough, JP Graziano's has not only thrived, but they have succeeded time and time again over the course of 80 years. So, they've made their way through maybe not a few pandemics, but a few really, really big world events that have completely shape-shifted who we are as communities, who we are as consumers. And he talks a lot about who we are today as local individuals, of part of our local community. I think the most surprising thing about Navigating Now is no matter who we've brought into this discussion, they've been able to add something almost textbook about business and how to run a business. And here's Jimmy talking about the key ingredients to a successful business through a pandemic. And he was really, really challenging the fact that not much has changed. Take a look.
And it's really, so much of our success stuff, it feels nice because people want to give me a lot of pats on the back. Really, it's just me paying attention to the generations before me and how I got to see my dad and my grandpa and my Uncle Paul and my Uncle Larry talk to our customers and treat our customers, and being, the salesman on the street when we were in wholesale. You'd go see a customer, you would be there for an hour, 45 minutes. You would talk about what's going on in their family and how's this guy doing? And last time I was here, your wife wasn't feeling well. Is she feeling better? Your daughter got married or had a baby. And then the last 15 minutes is the order. I've always watched genuine relationships be built over cases of pasta and tomatoes. And to me, that's what makes you different, right? Every industry you're in, what makes you unique, what makes you different? How do you separate yourself from everybody else? To me, that's what was different here. We had customers would come over to our house for holidays, man, or go to their house for dinner or spend a weekend over at their house, just because one day they walked into JP Graziano and started buying cheese from us. And then fast forward a few months or years later, and we're really good friends.
That was a
It's
great
interesting.
episode.
It really was. And I can just always tell, where we're at in the conversation. Cause I look at my nonverbals, like they just don't lie. They just don't lie. And I could not hold my excitement, such a weak word, but like just my absolute gratitude and passion towards what he was bringing to the table in this conversation. Again, this was, episode 16. So here we are, June timeframe, end of June, beginning of July, right in the middle of this. And, his Italian deli is in the middle of all of these restaurants that are trying to figure it out. They're flipping the model, they're going to DoorDash and Caviar and all of these delivery models. And they're also putting these kind of tents up outside so that people can, people can dine. But Jimmy pushed back and he said, at the end of the day, it's about relationships, right? And he said, I can't tell you how many relationships have been bought over boxes of pasta, which I just loved. And he also talked about, look, I understand the need to pivot and innovate. He said, but we can also double down on what works. And what works for us is selling enough sandwiches until the bread runs out. And when the bread runs out, we go home. And he said, and because of everything that's happening, I don't need to think beyond that. I don't need to think about the big pivot or the big switch. So, the other thing that I maybe want to call out here, and I want to ask you about, Norm, is inevitably what came from a lot of these discussions was about family and tradition. At the heart of every leader are, their past relationships and ultimately where they came from in their family. And that's why there were like a few tears shed, over the course of the year, because you start talking about business principles and where did those come from? Well, how do you think you had such a great kind of customer orientation? Well, it's because my uncle and my father showed me the way. And you just get to the heart of a lot of what makes business great. And it's ultimately family and tradition. What does that mean to you?
I mean, you and I have talked about this quite a bit. Relationships for us are at the center. As we think about our business, our community, for us, it's all about relationships. And I would even say for us over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, we continue to spend more time focused on the relationships and less time focused maybe on the revenue or the transaction or the true business side. There's so much about the relationships that transcend, again, a business, a project, a role, whatever that might be. And we've been super fortunate to have our most meaningful relationships start to integrate between family, friends, and business. And it doesn't get better than that, man. It does not.
Yeah. Yeah. To the point where, you know, if there's anything that we're going to continue to double down on, shelter in place, pandemic or not, it will be continuing to invest in those relationships. And, you know, that term relationships, as you just well stated, that has evolved, you know, for me. And I keep kind of coming back to almost the big takeaway for me in 2020 was that for the first time in my, 15 years of living downtown Chicago, I was forced to open my eyes on my walk to work. I was forced to kind of lift my head up and pay attention to what's going on, because we all wanted to see what was going on in our local community. It was also the first time that I wasn't on a plane every, Monday and Friday. And so I had this opportunity to experience my 6-block radius in a way that I never have before. And what came from it was just a much closer connection to folks like Jimmy Graziano and Nick Rodriguez, who's another great member of the community, and folks who are doing this every day. And whether they're pivoting and jumping the curve, or whether they're just continuing to keep the lights on, it for me has been one of the most surprising and inspiring components to my year, is that if you open your eyes and you lift your head up, community is right in front of you. It's right in front of you. And the amazing thing is that you and I have found that sense of community in many cases behind a Zoom screen.
Absolutely.
So it's really special. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's amazing. I feel like everybody's also redefining what community means, because it used to be, very specific to, potentially your school or your church, or, certain groups that are a bit more traditional. To your point, it's like all of a sudden, that the landscape has shifted, and all of a sudden you're looking up and you're looking around your 6-block radius, and you're connecting in ways that otherwise you may not have. So I just, I'm excited about that opportunity of, again, like what has maybe been around you that you just haven't been as aware, and what are those new connections and new relationships that are just gonna be really meaningful.
Yeah, and I'd say another thing as well too is I think community is a way that our team has connected to. We've had a couple of team members bring folks to this discussion that they probably wouldn't have otherwise. And we're actually going to hear from one of them here in a couple of moments. But you and I have also experienced community through our team, and what they're kind of grappling with and what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so it's been great to be able to lift my head up and acknowledge and connect to my community. But it's also been great to see our team do the same.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so we are continuing to look back at what was just a pretty wild, but in many cases, a really incredible 2020. As we look back at 31 episodes of the Navigating Now Roundtable series, we're starting to see real themes here in the importance and more so the evolution of community. Some of the more foundational and timeless ingredients to building a business that won't change regardless of what's happening around us. And also the need to really, really put leadership in action day to day. You and I this year have talked a lot about practitionership and what it means to really own your craft. And we've even introduced that concept to several of our clients as a way to challenge them to really identify, if you had to wake up every day and you had to do something that you loved within your role, within your job, what would that be? And in many cases, it's not necessarily what we're doing all day, every day. We realize that. But if you can tap into what you're absolutely great at, you get to a place where you're almost unstoppable in terms of your ability to add perspective, drive value, and ultimately be successful. And our next guest that came in episode 21, Christian Zerone, the founder of Theo and Harris, is another member of our community that exemplifies practitionership. This is a very young entrepreneur, but do not be mistaken. He has the clout of somebody who's been through this for many, many years. He has the ability to speak to topics as well as practice them. And a lot of what we've taken in terms of building, not just Navigating Now, but our entire social media and social platform comes from folks like Christian who continue to demonstrate practitionership. And in his case, Theo and Harris being a predominant brand in the vintage watch space. So you talk about a real niche market. Christian has been building this brand that not only sells great watches and brings timeless watches to folks who are really geeking out about watches, but he's also been able to build a platform and brand that he's now able to take to much bigger organizations, recently Omega. And they are taking his practitionership and applying it to a once traditional, or some would say stale, business model. So let's hear from Christian about his practitionership in building brand.
We acquire of our clients through, from being fans, right? A vintage watch, or a watch in general, you're talking about, let's say, somewhere between $1,000 and $30,000. Is not something you buy because a good ad came up. You can
Right.
Retarget people and remind them, but they're not buying it on a whim, really. This is
Right.
something that you need to train them to trust you over the course of weeks and months, right, before they actually want to give you their money. So that's it. The fact that we've created a community where we publish content on a weekly basis, that is what starts it. Directly with that, I spend an incredible amount of time and resources on answering community emails. We get thousands of community emails that have nothing to do with our product, and they all go answered. It takes a week, but they all go answered, right? And the whole point of that, it's a waste of money, right? They're not buying my product, but they're keeping them in the community, and eventually they will buy product. That's it. So a lot of it is just, how do we become someone's favorite hub within this community? Maybe they'll spend money in January. Maybe they won't spend money at all this year.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily matter. So that it's really a family kind of thing. I don't know everyone, of course, but everyone feels like they know me, whether that's through YouTube or through Instagram. That's what we're able to communicate.
Yeah. I'm not going to date Christian, but he might be half our age. And the way that he speaks to not just key business principles, but this concept of practitionership, it's in so much of what we just heard there. Particularly the idea of answering thousands of emails with no expectation of return. So Norm, talk to us a little bit about practitionership. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your clients? How do we unpack this term that we've used so many times this year?
Yeah, so I want to maybe even just share your definition of practitionership and even the example that you use, because to be honest, that word practitioner has a lot of different maybe connotations, or you've heard it in different contexts. But as you described, what is practitionership in your previous life? I'd love for you just to share, as you were describing you as a sculptor, like use that as an example, and then I want to build from that, because that was like, I was like, whoa, okay, now I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, well, the dictionary definition of practitionership is to treat your work like an art form or a craft. And the definition of practitioner is one who practices. Now, the first definition is a lot more romantic than the second, but they're equally as important. One who practices, like one who shows up every day and does not mind owning his craft, no matter how good he or she is at it. The example that I love to use, and I don't know where I've gotten this from, but I have almost this innate desire to do a single thing really, really well for years and years and years. And I can only equate that to, a sculptor or a painter, like back in the, 1700s, that would spend 3/4 of a lifetime on a single piece, whether that was for, a royalty or a family member. And as much as I don't think that would work in today's age, practitionership is the willingness to step into that work. Practitionership is the desire to continue to sharpen your tools and to have a singular focus, which we know today is pretty challenging.
Yeah, and I just love that definition, because again, it challenged me to think very differently, not in terms of your classic training, not in terms of what's my title or what do I have experience in, but it's like at the end of the day, like where do you go super deep, and what is that piece that's your superpower that just absolutely puts you at your best? And for me, it's everything around enabling others, and really unlocking potential. And so throughout my entire career, and I would even say outside of professional, services, that's really for me what it's all about. If I were to think about at the end of the day, what is the thing that I love to go super deep in? It's trying to help others maybe see something about themselves that they can't see, or to help a team or an organization just elevate to the next level. So for me, as I think about practitionership, it puts it in a different light. Again, it's not about the job or the title or the roles and responsibilities. It's like, if you could do something every day and go deep day after day with that consistency, what is it? And for me, it's the team space of unlocking potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll also just refer back to, Christian as a practitioner in building brand.
Big time.
Here's somebody who, I met 4 years ago, who had just started this vintage watch online shop. And within 5 minutes of talking to him, you knew that he was building something much bigger. And whether he was very clearly stating that, or whether that was like his pitch or not, which at the time it was not, you just knew that it was much bigger. And it was because you knew that he was in the work of building community. He was in the work of answering thousands of emails with no expectation. He was in the work of telling unbelievable stories without any click-through conversion. And, we use a term oftentimes, one is greater than zero, the ability to, see the bigger picture, but start with one and realize that it's much bigger than zero, is a big part of practitionership. And Christian, we value your practitionership. It's so amazing to be able to lead and mentor others. And I hope that I've been able to do a little bit of that for Christian. But more than that, I look up to you, Christian, like you probably don't know, in terms of your ability to focus on building community through the most important ingredient, which really is practitionership. So to a true practitioner, Christian, thank you for being a part of the community.
Love it.
Okay, so we are continuing to count down to some of our most, we're actually counting up. We started back in April. And we're reviewing some of the most memorable moments from our Navigating Now virtual roundtable series, which, is a live broadcast every Thursday at 3. But, as hopefully you all are experiencing today, it's so much more than that. It's a tie to community. It's a reference back to family. And it's a way for all of us to be able to step outside of our day-to-day and connect on the topics that matter most. We've had some guests that have come into the community with very little context. And our next example of just an incredible moment for Navigating Now comes from Rupert Pierce, the founder of Growing Happy. Rupert is somebody that one of our teammates brought in. And I go back to the power of just hearing from others in terms of the conversations that they're having, expanding kind of our awareness of what's going on out there. And Growing Happy is a UK-based organization that is focused on elevating and enhancing people's stories and leveraging that to make real change in local communities. And this is a moment that, Rupert really focused on not just the ability to tell the story, but challenging those people that are around us to do something about it. And so we'll hear from Rupert here in just a second.
Yeah, so it's so important, and if you get it right, it's beautiful. We're talking about, there's one project we're working on at the moment, and the individuals in that community feel completely disconnected from their city and from the leadership. But by actually not just running focus groups, to your point, but actually allowing individuals within those groups to then create their own content, to tell their stories, to say how they want to change that city or that community. What do they want to do differently? How do they want to do it differently? And I think this is where it's important as well. And this is where Growing Happy needs the different divisions, is not just allowing them to tell that story, but then figuring out a way for them to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's all very well empowering them by giving someone a camera and saying, great, tell your story.
Yes.
But if you say, tell your story and tell us what you want to do differently, and then you don't give them an opportunity to do that, then for me, you miss something and you lose something. And we've got to get better at doing that across society, not just hearing people's voices, but empowering them to do something with it and support.
You know, this is another one of those episodes where like, I just couldn't control my nonverbals. And I think, you know, there's just these moments where, you know, we've had leaders that have taken topics like telling, you know, enabling people to tell stories. And it's like, they've challenged us to go deeper with it. And that's usually when you get a little bit of that like, ooh, response for me, because it's really challenging. There's a front and a back end to what Rupert just talked about. And in their case, they use digital media, they use market research, they use benchmarking to help local communities develop stories and enact change using them. The second half of what Rupert talked about was something that is oftentimes overlooked, particularly in market research and in a lot of the empathy work that we do with our clients. And that is, you know, tell us your story. And the second half, and tell us how you want to see things change because of it, which is just so powerful. So, you know, Norm, I'm curious, you know, when we talk about telling stories, and as much as maybe you're not asking your clients to tell stories every day, are there opportunities for you to ask them to go deeper, and what really came through from what Rupert, you know, talked about here?
Yeah, this is one of those ones where you were asking just in terms of navigating now, you know, what's been the impact on me personally? And this was one of them. I mean, there was something about Rupert's personality and his passion in every answer that he had, where you could see his face lighting up. And I just thought like, wow, he's got something. I mean, he is incredible. When he talked about just the way he, you know, looks at storytelling, it's not about the storytelling to be romantic and for it just to be artistic. I think for me, what I was able to relate to is, okay, well, what does that actually mean for me? And like, what's the action that I'm willing to take to do something different, to enact the change of where I want to go? So that enablement piece was, you know, for some reason, I have never heard somebody put those two together. And so as I started thinking about that, it's like, there's so much power in that. And you think about the potential of how can I get someone to relate to stories, but then quickly follow it up with, you know, real change and transformational change. I mean, that's a powerful 1-2 combo.
Yeah. You know, in a later episode, I think we were talking to Kathleen Brown, and we agreed that particularly this year, there was this ability to just simply show up for each other that we, I think as leaders, found to be almost the most important thing about connection, community leadership. The ability to show up, to just show up. Even if you don't have the answers, or maybe you've got bad news, or maybe you've never done this before and you're about to fail in front of each other or your team. Or if you're in the act of failing, the ability to just show up. And I will tell you, within the span of, you know, 4 or 5 months of getting to know Rupert and his team at Growing Happy, it's just this incredible example of like, we've just been able to show up for each other. And in these types of conversations and in conversations that we've had offline, and Rupert just has an incredible opportunity or a credible ability to create the space for that type of connection without the agenda, you know, without the formal partnership that might exist between our organization and theirs. He's really, really able to create that space. And he does that through provoking, you know, content and perspective like this. So Rupert, we're so happy to have you in the Navigating Now community. And we wish you a very happy and healthy end of the year out across the pond in the UK. Okay, we are just about headed towards the finish line here. You know, I think one of the last artifacts or side effects of Navigating Now is one that typically we would start and end every episode with, and that is gratitude. That word, that term has shown up in so many ways. I think for all of us, I think we can relate. I think most of us as humans have hopefully found a new sense of gratitude over the course of the last year, or maybe we've struggled with it. But like resilience, it's just this concept, this part of life now that is just more present. And for me, in certain cases, it's been a lot easier for me to express gratitude. And I've been fortunate enough to have these conversations as a platform to express that gratitude. And in certain situations, in most situations, as you express gratitude, you realize that there's so much more to your community, your relationships, than just a dialogue. And so this next clip, and it's our last one, is one of appreciation and gratitude. We, episode 27, this was just recently, about 4 weeks ago. And I'm sorry, episode 28, about 4 weeks ago. We had the opportunity to sit down with Tom Shaner, the Chief Commercial Officer of Ambry Genetics in Southern California. Tom is a member of the Thoughtium community. He's also a mentor of mine. And I had the opportunity in our conversation to express some gratitude and to acknowledge, what we as leaders, the impact we as leaders oftentimes have on people when maybe we don't even know it. And, I've told you this before, Tom. One of the key moments that, I'll never forget in my career was a couple years into my time in San Francisco, and you had left the organization that we were working together for. You had called to kind of see how things were going. We were touching base. You had joined a new organization. You were really excited about the growth there. And you said, I need you to leave this organization and come work for me over here. And I said, Tom, it's been less than a year, and I just moved my life out to San Francisco, and I love you and I believe in you, but like, I got to dig my heels in. And you said, we need what you have over here, and I want you to think about it. And I'll never forget, because I'm standing in a phone booth, knees shaking, right? Because here I am, like, about to have this discussion, and the words came out of my mouth without even preparing for them. Tom, I would love to do this, but I would love for you all to be my first client.
Oh,
and it was just one of those out of body experiences where I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but clearly I had developed this vision and this confidence in the vision that was ready at the time. And, I had a leader in yourself that really believed in me and my work, and you took a shot on bringing me in. At the time, you were my first and only client. And, it's been 4 years to this week that, Thoughtium has grown based on the confidence and the influence that you had on me as an individual, and ultimately us as a team over the years. And those are the moments that, really make careers. Those are the moments that we absolutely remember. And I just want to thank you for being a big part of that moment for me, but more so for my team today, right? Because we wouldn't exist had it not been for that moment and the confidence that you instilled in me. So I really want to thank you for that.
No.
So, I don't need to comment on that because I lived it, but I'm curious, Norm, this connection between gratitude and this year and the community that we've built in Navigating Now, what does that mean for you?
Well, I'll even share off of that episode. I actually had, somebody who in my community reached out. So Dave Hogue reached out, and it was again, like a moment for me. I mean, Dave's one of those who gave me a shot. And as I think about for, one of my first projects, he's always been a leader who's believed in me, whether I was on his team or even as a client. And he's also that type of relationship that transcends, a business and a role. He's truly a friend in a relationship that matters. And so I remember having a 30-minute conversation with him coming right off of that episode and having the same moment that evoked the same emotion, where it was like, it's a chance to acknowledge, how meaningful it's been and what impression that he's left in terms of me, both individually and for our team in terms of where we're at. I mean, it's so special, and you have those moments and you just think like, wow, I mean, it's special.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I think if we've been given certain gifts over the last year, one of those has been just an enhanced opportunity to tell people that they mean something to us, that we love them, and that we're extremely grateful for the fact that they are in our lives more this year again than we ever have. And I think that gratitude has become a lot more authentic. I've seen it in you. I've seen it in our team. I've seen it in our clients. And that's one thing that I used to say, I hope would never change. I know it's not going to change. I think through this, we will, I just don't think we're going to be able to put that filter back on. oftentimes the guardrails that exist in business relationships that prevent you from saying, I love you, I support you, and I'm here for you. And you and I have had the opportunity to do that through Navigating Now. And I know the folks that have stepped in have had that opportunity as well too. So gratitude, I think, is just a great way to potentially end the show here. You know, a couple thank yous just on my end as we head into the end of the year. I first and foremost really want to thank our team. You know, we have an incredible squad of individuals here at Thoughtium that all have had to navigate their own lives and their own careers over the course of the last, 8 months. And you and I have the honor and the privilege of trying to lead this group through all of this. But I think one of the things that you and I have realized is that that leadership, has to come through your team. And the direction that we've headed has always started and stopped with our team and the energy that they've been able to bring every day. You know, it's interesting. You and I are both here at our office in WeWork. You are upstairs and I'm downstairs. And so we've had the opportunity almost every day to connect. And thankfully, we're in a situation where you and I can physically be together as we lead. But if you think about it, we've been so detached from our team over the course of the last 8 to 10 months. And I know every single one of our leaders who have stepped into this discussion have done it, again, behind the Zoom screen, trying to lead people. And I just want to thank our team for being there with us and getting through this with us. That is something that I will always be thankful for, is our team's ability to step in, to navigate some of the ambiguity, and to look positively at what is ahead, because we've got an incredible future ahead of us. The second thank you that I want to make, Norm, is to you, my business partner, my best friend, and somebody who, unfortunately is not getting rid of me over the next foreseeable future. If there's anybody who's shown the consistency and the resilience of a true leader, it's somebody who physically, mentally, emotionally, and from a leadership perspective will show up every day, no matter what is going on around them. And I want to thank you for everything that you have provided to us, our team, and most importantly, I want to thank you for everything that you've done for me over the course of the last 8 years. Thank you for showing up.
No, I appreciate that, man. And right back at you. As I was thinking about even, this last video clip with Tom, I'll never forget even you taking a shot on me. It's like, you were out on your own, starting a firm, just thinking about, and you and I didn't necessarily know everything about, ourselves professionally. And so even our ability to connect in unique ways, your ability to, trust in what we were building, it's meant a lot. And so, I couldn't be more inspired about your leadership and the vision you have and our partnership going forward. I mean, it's special.
Thank you. And who would have thought it would evolve to the point where you and I could literally hit broadcast on something like this? And I'm like jinxing myself right now that something's going to go wrong in the last 5 minutes. But I'm so excited that this worked today, because I know you and I were so excited about sharing some of these moments as we zoom out at 2020. This is a year in review that I don't think I'll ever forget, because it's made of not just what we've done here at Thoughtium, but it's really made of the community that surrounds us. And so we really want to end with a huge thank you to everybody who tunes in, who is a part of the Thoughtium community, and really just a part of our lives. We know that when we talk about community, it's much more than just our clients and our colleagues. It's our family, it's our friends, it's our connections on LinkedIn. And for those of you who are tuning in, we want to thank you. We look forward to continuing this platform, and we will. We will be back early January with more incredible topics, more incredible guests, and more incredible dialogue every Thursday at 3. Have an incredible end of the year, a wonderful few weeks of holidays. Stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you all in January.